I appreciate the guys to come on. This is a little late notice here, but nevertheless, it'll be online for people to check out later.
Yes, good evening, everyone, and thank you for coming.
I am Michael Wright from Unfiltered Gamer, and we do board game reviews, Kickstarter reviews, walkthroughs, previews, that kind of stuff.
Yes.
And I'm with my buddy Ferdinand here.
Yes, Ferdinand Capitulo, the cardboard stacker. We do reviews, peer reviews, and of course tutorials on my YouTube channel, the Cardboard Stacker.
And pretty much we're going to just be talking about Kickstarter games today, and maybe the involvement we have as reviewers, and possibly things that can help future people that are interested in Kickstarter content, whether it be board games or not. You know?
Yeah, I think you can call this like our Kickstarter showcase, or something we're going to put on upstairs soon, and something we are previewing very soon in there. Anyway, I do like to start with some of the games that just got out of Kickstarter, and they've gone through the gauntlet of what is called Kickstarter, and they successfully gave out some new games here. All right. How about we start with Coville, since I think both of us do love Coville, right?
Oh yeah, it was an excellent game. This was one of the top 10 games of last year for us. A mention from me, and number 1 for you. It's made by Louis Brewer, I believe, with Vesuvius Games. Coville is an area control game with a bit of a mechanism for gathering heroes and placing it down.
It's a very tight game. It almost has a kind of feeling of Small World, but it is kind of goofy, but also very serious at the same time as you're playing the gameplay.
And actually, what's interesting too is Louis hails from, I believe, Greece, right? That's where I got my game from. Got a bunch of
I think it was from Brazil.
Maybe I know I got my stamps from Greece, which I kept because I enjoyed that kind of aspect.
Well, Vesuvius Media is a company in Canada.
But I don't know what company that this was made from.
Yeah, so the Vesuvius Media is in Canada, and Louis Blair is in Brazil.
Okay.
Yeah, so. Yeah, that one just came out recently. I don't think it's in distribution right now, but if you can find, you probably can contact the Vesuvius Media if you do want a copy of this.
A lot of games on Kickstarter can be hard to get on, especially the smaller ones.
We're just gonna go through really quickly. So, for those who are in the Arizona Game Fair right now, you may have met Michael SQ. We have one of these games right now, a very excellent game called Trash Panda, which just recently got picked up by GameRight. Congratulations with that.
Oh wow, excellent!
Yeah.
Great.
So it's a cool game. It's a push your luck dice rolling collection game where you're trying to collect different kind of trash pieces, and the more you collect, the more points you can get. But you have to have at least the most than anyone else, or else you won't get any points.
So yeah, it's a basic push your luck game. It's nice if you enjoy. It kind of reminds me of Guardians of the Galaxy a little bit, just because of the whole Trash Panda reference when it comes to raccoons.
Oh yes. Okay.
But it's an excellent game, right?
And 2 games I just got recently is Bargain Quest. This is the designer is, I believe, from Jonathan Ying, and he is one of the developers and designers for Fantasy Flight. He has made Bargain Quest along with his sister, who works as an animator or a concept artist for Disney. Yeah. And this game is just about you're putting items for sale. You're actually the shopkeeper in this game.
And you're trying to help adventurers basically gather stuff.
So you're selling them items, and then they're kind of vouching for you, like, this is a good store. I'm gonna beat this boss, and hopefully I can come back, and then I can shop again.
I actually saw these guys at PAX South last time I went there, and they were showing off their game. It looked really fun.
All right, and the last game I'm gonna show before we do our Kickstarter showcase is The Last Guardian. This is from Chris Rollins. This one I just got like last week, and it's a worker placement push a luck game.
I missed the boat on that one.
Yeah. This is a game about the last human on Earth. She is called the Queen, and she has a little robotanist, and they're growing gardens for her. But the robotanists kind of don't really know how to do it though, but they kind of spring out. But essentially, it's a game where you put your robots down, and you have to score on those kind of things. You're putting gems down, and you're going to other places, and the plants might wilt.
It looked beautiful. It reminded me of Herbaceous a little bit. I like that game, so I'll be hoping to check this one out as well.
Cool. And this is from 1000 XP. All right. Well, that's enough. That's like 4 games from me. Why don't we start from you? So from some of the Kickstarter.
I mean, sure. I just figured. I figured I'd talk about a couple of the games that are going to be coming out, and maybe answer some questions regarding Kickstarter campaigns, what you maybe people might have. But I've got a couple games here. They're basically self-published style games. And as I talked about earlier, there is a thing called the Game Crafter, which I'm a featured reviewer on or something like that. And people come to me from the Game Crafter, and you'll notice the boxes are all the same when you get Game Crafter game boxes. This is Eternal Kings, which is on Kickstarter by Rolando Aiza. I hope I said that right. Pardon me if I didn't. And then I've got David Go with Endogenesis. And they're interesting games, and the components are quite different. And I think a lot of the Kickstarter created, like, I guess the making your own game on different websites, they've gotten a lot better now. So if you actually wanted to make your own game now, even just on like the Game Crafter or any of the other ones, I guess could you name any other game sites you could make your own game at? I can't.
Yeah, but the Game Crafter is very interesting, especially if you're making prototypes for games to show off for people, like in cons and stuff. It's not a way to make something cheaper, and these prototypes are pretty expensive anyway. Yeah. But what they do is save you a lot of time.
It helps for handing out games to reviewers too. You only need to make 4 or 5 of them. That's great. When you're making a print run of like 1,000 games later, then you can go for obviously your high-end budget stuff like that. But
the prices were worth it for its practicalness. But if you're looking to, some people even sell games.
They do. I wouldn't recommend it. I don't think. I wouldn't go for the Game Crafter as for selling games specifically. But I think it does a great job for getting tutorials out for your game.
Well, I think if you are like starting off,
or maybe a basic card game, that's another good aspect to go for the Game Crafter. Because the cards are not bad. The quality of the Game Crafter is definitely improved. But so the Eternal Kings is an interesting one because it's basically chess but using cards, right? And there's many different factions, and as you can see, this is a very large chessboard right here.
Yeah, a chessboard that looks like it's made for cards.
And it's got pawns and all that, just like a normal game of chess. You can even play a normal game of chess using this. However, each of the characters also has a flip ability to do different things throughout the game and different chess-breaking rules. It kind of reminds me of Nightmare Chess in a way, I suppose, but also has like a little bit of an RPG element. And then Endogenesis is a cool game if you like, kind of like a MOBA style game in a card game form, and you're improving your skills and abilities and whatnot. But the basic takeaway is these games are really cool, and they've done a really good job making these games via Game Crafter, even though obviously they're kind of similar in the aspect of how they're designed. But it's a good starting process for people that are interested in going past Kickstarter. Like you getting their stuff done and producing it is definitely going on to get something like the Game Crafter. Cool. So a couple of other ones I'll talk about. One that's going to be coming out, and one that is currently still on, other than Eternal Kings, which is still on. Rambo, the board game, is by Everything Epic, and it's one of those games that you see an IP, right, of a game, and you go, okay, is this going to be good? Because when you see a video game movie, I don't know if you guys have seen movies that involve video games, but generally they suck. Right, and so in the board game community, it kind of like trickled in that way to where you're like, I'm afraid of dealing with these kind of things. I mean, a couple of them didn't. I believe Warehouse 13 did pretty well. The board game, that's an excellent trader-based game. We even get the luxury of playing with it, right, with the creators. And I think people are skeptical on them, but I think designers are starting to get into the industry and know what people like and what they don't like, and they don't want to make these roll-the-move old-style games anymore. They want to make things that are going to be more modernized.
And actually played.
And Rambo, the board game, does that in an interesting way. It's a miniature dungeon-crawling style game with a bit of a Marathrash aspect going on. That's a good terminology, I suppose, right? Yeah, Marathrash, chucking dice and stuff like that. But in this one, it's removing the dice aspect and adding a card aspect in which you're going to be playing different cards. And Rambo, he is able to obviously go up and slice you, as opposed to maybe one of his other comrades. They're going to be sniping you from a distance. And it's a very, very difficult game too, actually. And they've done a couple other cool games lately, but that is one IP that I would recommend. In fact, a lot of them I recommend. There's Jurassic Park coming out pretty soon, which I'm skeptical on, but I hope it's going to be good.
They are giving it to game companies that looks like they have a very better backbone of creating games. So, and you can see that the trend of IP in games has been doing a lot better.
Yeah, definitely. That's
there is companies that still do that. The trend of what would a IP game would look like and do roll and move or trivia game or in that sense.
I mean, hopefully tonight I'm hopefully going to be playing The Thing by USAopoly. I got that game recently, and it looks really cool. It's one of my favorite horrors. I think people who enjoy horror, like John Carpenter's works, would probably be interested in checking this title out. I'm hoping it's pretty good. I heard good things though.
And also the trend, I think, also is that most of these games are has a lot of miniatures in them. I mean, Teenage Mutant Ninja Turtles had one. Conan had one. Even Song of Ice and Fire.
It's an interesting thing though too, right? Where you look at, is the game good, or do people buy it just for the miniatures? And I'm not sure in a lot of cases. Obviously, Cool Mini or Not produces a lot of games, and I'm a fan of them for the most part. Some of them I don't back, but They produce tons of beautiful miniatures, and the question arises like, do I need miniatures for my game in Kickstarter? And I don't think you do. I don't think that's
Also, miniatures is a selling point as well.
It definitely is, yeah. It's just like artwork, And some games have amazing artwork that sell their game beautifully.
Okay.
But yeah, IPs are an interesting thing, and I think basically the point across is that IPs are doing much better now, and the games have been being modernized, which is nice compared to still the video game to movie aspect.
Yeah. It's gone a lot better over the years. May I have a turn?
Go ahead, go ahead and talk.
Oh, well, this is the game we are doing together as well.
Are we?
Yeah, we have Chaparral, right?
Yeah.
Yeah, so this is Chaparral. So I think it is a worker placement game where you are trying to put points on the board and everything. It's a lot more mechanical, but the theme looks pretty awesome because you're, I guess, going around. It's a Western kind of
theme, right?
Yeah, Western theme. You're building the railroad. You're going to the mines to get ore and stuff. You're inviting the governor for dinner, and you're also going to the farm and making farms. So it's all this kind of things in there, and while it's a worker placement game, you're racing to get these goals. So you have to complete invite the governor a number of times, or have these farms completed a number of times, and then you can grab them, and then that's how you win. So
it's kind of like a Euro-esque cowboy style game.
Yeah, and this is actually from another Brazilian designer as well.
Right, that was the Greymass. Got it from them, right?
Yes, and they're also the people who did Dogs. I forgot his name.
Actually, it's interesting. I've seen, for Gary, if you're interested, Dogs has been at the convention and being played, which is great. He walked by and I saw that, and I'm like, awesome. And he's like, I actually got one of the dogs. And what Greyback Games does is great. A good point of interest is selling points on Kickstarter, creating exclusive content, right? Oh, you can name your dog, and one of the little tokens on the back of it is going to have your dog's name. So that's a really great point you can add onto your campaign, whether it be an Easter egg or something like a name your dog, name your token.
And it's also a very young company as well. That's their second game. They're going to be Kickstarter. We don't know what's going to be in Kickstarter yet, but Dogs is already out. But it looks like they might be coming with Chaparral very soon.
Yeah. And there's nothing about selling points on Kickstarter I think is irrelevant is things like that you don't have to do. Like when you got a cardboard chip that represents. Another example is Dogs. The car, for instance, you can flip it over and usually it's going to be blank or a black imprint. Adding something like the back of a car, at the bottom of a car, is kind of cool when you don't need to actually do it, but it adds that flair to it, and people are going to see that you put that little bit of extra effort into the game. And it's a good way to get your backers to come and back your next game, creating that community, which is what you want when it comes to building Kickstarter, a Kickstarter community, which is almost what it's becoming now, right? And even some people are stationed only in Kickstarter, no matter how big they get. So, another one. Yeah, another game you want to talk about? Or you?
Oh yeah, sure. I'll just take another turn.
Yeah, plenty of them.
Yeah. So we got Rebels. Ravenport. This is a dice-based game where you're trying to defeat monsters and trying to beat the demon lord at the very end. So this has a lot of kind of different play aspects. You can make it harder you like, or it's a different strategy. You start out very simple. Your guys can just roll dice, and if any dice matches your rebels, that's how much damage you do. And as you defeat monsters, you can pick a monster first, right? And then
that's some cool artwork too.
Yeah. So you're picking out monsters like, oh, I'm gonna beat this man in the middle because he's a moderate kind of monster. He'll give me some points to spend on getting items. Defeat him or not, something happens bad, you're not gonna get anything. So it's all that risk reward, like, oh, I'm gonna push my luck a little bit more and defeat a much more higher boss. And if you get rewarded, you get more money. And more money to spend, you can get different abilities, and more different abilities you have, then you can go ahead and keep moving up until you can beat the big boss, which is the Demon King.
Oh, awesome.
Yeah.
And we just said, speaking of another selling point, like the artwork on this game, is definitely going to attract a certain audience, right?
Mm-hmm. Yeah,
and this is really cool, especially like anime fans and whatnot.
So this is from Secret Weapon Games. It plays for 2 to 6 players. They just set it up about 30 minutes, and I think it's going to be in Kickstarter either in March or April.
Awesome.
Yeah.
Got a lot of games that either are on or coming to fairly shortly. Another one, we have 2 other ones over there, the Primary and Highways and Byways.
Okay,
we'll talk about the Primary. We
played this one.
Yeah, this one's pretty cool. This is an interesting game regarding, put up here I guess, and maybe you'll stay, maybe it won't. But it's regarding the primary, right? The primary election in the United States, and you're going to choose a electoral candidate, and you're going to attempt to win over the states during a voting process. It's a game where you're going to basically be placing like a hidden mechanic game. You place down your hidden mechanics, like you want to move, do you want to vote, do you want to do this, gain money. gain influence, and then you're all going to flip over the first card, and the second, and the third all together in each sequence. And then if you have the most influence in a state on the turn the state is going to be voting on, you win the state. The state's worth a certain amount of points, and if you are able to obtain enough states, the majority of electoral college votes, then you're going to win the game. And it plays excellently. This is a really, really fun game, and it's made by Mountaintop Games. I think it's coming out pretty soon, Kickstarter.
I believe in March. Also has accompanying a solo variant there. It's a different game. You're against a robot.
Oh, really?
Yeah.
That's cool. Yeah, it does work very well. It's very fluid, and there's also, what's really cool about some games, you start to see choices that are better or worse as you play them. And that's what really makes a good game, too, is the more you play a game, the better you're going to be getting at it, right? If you're able to play a second time and be better at it, it's an important aspect.
And even though this is a game about voting in the American political system, it is very abstracted.
Yeah.
Yes, but it does have that essence of it. Like you're going through states, you're setting your guy.
The theming is great. You feel like a candidate, and you feel like you're trying to collect votes in any way you can, mainly by money. Right?
Yeah, and the states are clumped. This is very strange too. Yeah, but like the voting process of like where the states are going to vote, when they're going to vote is like I'm never going to reach California, but because I'm in New England right now, I'm going to focus on this and then move on somewhere else because
you can't fly there. It'll just cost you money.
Yeah, I know. I'm going to leave my influence in New England and go somewhere else. Because now that place is good. Hopefully it's good. If not, guess what? If someone's trying to, go in there.
Encroach on your territory.
You can put an ad.
Right.
Yeah. So it's kind of cool.
You can do ads from across the country, which is pretty cool. But it does feel like a political, political style game. It works too. In fact, in this climate, it's really hard to put out political games specifically targeting certain things. But in this one, it does it very
neutral, but very elegant as well.
Oh,
and
definitely.
it doesn't lose that theme. Yeah.
Talking about something else a little more interesting regarding Kickstarter campaigns, as you can probably see, you've seen these crazy...
The little contraption
right? Yeah, so, you might be wondering what this is. But it's from Secret Unknown Stuff, Escape from Dulce, right? And this is one of those things on Kickstarter which is interesting. You see a lot of games that have a lot of different mechanics and mechanisms and whatnot. This one specifically has a 3D tower aspect where you're going to be playing a dungeon crawl. If you've ever played a dungeon crawl before, you know that you have little miniatures, and it comes with miniatures as well. And you'll be crawling up this tower to get to the very top. And if you get to the very top and defeat the big bad boss, you're going to win. And I guess people call this a gimmick, right? But in a good sense, some of them, it's a good aspect to a lot of games. I'd be hard pressed to think of another right now.
It's really
maybe like magnetized boards and whatnot. They've been pumping out more of this kind of stuff, which is pretty cool. I like the aspects of them as long as they work. That's the most important.
This is something that you see far away on another table, and like, what is that game?
Yep.
And you want to go.
You want to check it out because you've never seen something like this before, right? And it does work. Obviously, when they originally were testing it with all 5 levels, and that got to the point where it was just too much, too big. So
they should do 5 levels. That'd be crazy.
Oh my god, that's when they originally started doing that with the game.
But
but what do you think is the question? Do you think this is a good idea to add into a game? It's just a point of interest to me specifically.
It looks pretty cool. It is
definitely
an
eye catcher, right?
Yeah. I don't know as much as the game as possible, but how it is very functional,
right? Yeah, you crawl from level to level as long as I think the only clunky thing would be getting your miniatures and kind of moving them around in here.
Oh, you talk about clunky, you see Cold Express. They had to put that thing in there, you then cross over there, yeah. So, this one you can actually reach over anywhere.
It makes it nice and easy. And also, too...
And there's a second board, too. So, and this does clean up the mess on the table where if it were naturally done, it'll be 5 different circles on the table, and that's a lot of space already.
Yep. No, definitely. So, it'd be up to you guys whether you guys think these are cool or not, but for me personally, I do enjoy them up to the point where it gets to be too much, or the game is specifically focused on these things, then you're not putting enough time and effort into the mechanisms of the game, and you're just putting time into making it something that's eye-catching. Because the problem is, you're going to make your game fun the first time, but the second time, after people have played the first one, you're not going to get to fun, because people have seen what you're doing, So, but putting them together is probably a cool idea,
And then the theme's pretty, odd as well.
Oh, the theme in this game is amazing. I love these.
You got like Bigfoot and the Mothman and stuff. And
yeah.
Do they have the Jersey Devil too?
They've got, Oh, I know. They got a
Can't
cow
remember.
that has a rocket launcher attached
A
to
two-headed
that.
cow, right?
A two-headed cow. It's got a rocket launcher. I mean, there's a ton of stuff in this game. I'm not even going to take it all out because it's insane. But I will take out a couple of these little guys, these little miniatures, and you can see. Pretty hard to see probably, but they got a little miniature
Oh my gosh.
cow with a rocket launcher strapped to his
Someone
back.
has, like, a
And this
little-
is actually a character you play. And what's interesting too is in order to use weapons with this character, you have to have a harness, because without a harness, you can't use your rocket launcher. You know?
It comes with a top hat.
Right, of course they do, right? It's very important. But you can also pick like the Smiths, where it's just a Siamese twins, but it's like a whole family of people put together. So it has that cool spacey theme to it. You're fighting against the man in black who owns the entire base, which is an Area 51 kind of theme. And it's got a bunch of missions and whatnot. It's cool. I mean, you don't even have to play with the entire tower sometimes, and you can kind of limit your amount of play. Because this is obviously a big, thick game, and it's going to only be appropriate for certain people. But yeah.
Okay.
Talk about highways and byways.
Highways and Byways. This is from Pangea Games. This is also another startup company. This is their very first game. Their Kickstarter is going to be launching March too. Most of these games are launching in March.
Yep.
And this is the game that you have a road of the the United States with the highways
Yep.
and byways, and you're going through to basically what is essentially a relay race to go through these highways and then collect your card for that and get through your, I guess like a road trip all the way through your highways and byways and get back home.
Yeah. It is cool. I mean, it doesn't. I mean, when I was making a joke about the game, when I looked down, like, what does your car break down when you're going around them?
Yes, it does.
Yeah, yes, it does.
It does.
Yeah. So if you want a road trip around the United States without having actually to make a road trip like we did, then it might be of interest to you to play this game.
But also, you also have these cards that have special abilities, and they're like really down cards. But it's like something you have to work with. Yes, I know we're going on a vacation or a road trip, but we don't want to spend as much money, so we got this card.
Yeah, you get a clunker, right?
Yeah.
Yeah. I haven't played this one fully yet. I got to read the rules and whatnot. But
Yeah,
it's,
I have played it. It's pretty neat what it does, and yeah, you're just going through roads, and like it feels like you're trying to plan a route. Yeah.
Chronicles of Crime now is another interesting title as well. This one actually, did it just come out on Kickstarter? Is it coming out? What's the deal? This is by Lucky
It's coming
Duck
out
Games.
the end of February.
They've done stuff like
Vikings
Gone Wild, and then the little zombie style game. It's a pretty cool
and
one.
the ninja,
Yeah.
Fruit Ninja.
Fruit Ninja. And this one here, this is actually a game that involves the apps. So this is another one of those games that has something interesting or unique to add.
Yeah,
to
the app
it.
is required for this.
It's an app.
game.
You have to have an app
And
to it.
because of that, we have VR goggles.
Yeah, it comes with little VR goggles. Yeah.
So you would put this on my phone or your phone.
My phone, not
Yeah,
yours.
I
Yours doesn't do it.
actually had to take out the case for that, but you can probably use any VR stuff anyway. You're looking for the clues when you're looking at. So it is 360. I am turning around everywhere and trying to look for where the clues are. And I explain to my partners like I see this dead animal, or I see a half-eaten cake that's on the floor with a broken plate,
Yeah.
and I see a dead lady.
Okay.
So yeah, so that's then you get clues, and then you're going to go around like areas where where like in the city or a place that the person who was dead kind of like spend their time and ask witnesses. You're gonna scan them into the phone, and you're gonna say, do you know about this item?
Yeah, you actually ask people via your phone about certain things that you're going to find through the game. It's kind of a cool little VR experience.
You also have help with your people like forensic scientists, doctors, even a hacker to check if they call their phone or their computer. And you got to deduce that. Then you go back to the police station and say, and the police station will give you these questions. Who did this? And you may have to scan items or answer questions on the phone of what's going to happen. And one of the great things about this is there's different scenarios in it too. So it's a lot of replayability.
I haven't played it yet. Not yet, but I will shortly when you finish. That's another cool thing with reviewers is when we work together, we're able to switch around with games. And a lot of people don't have a lot of money for prototypes. It's very expensive.
2
to make
for
these
1,
things. So
right?
you get 2 for 1 when you work with us, yeah. 'Cause we live in the same area. And yeah, this would actually look really cool. I was at PAX South.
Yeah.
And they had Vince's game at Evil Vile Genius Games.
Yeah.
we get to see. I get to see them test
It is a very immersive. It's a very immersive game where you're really thinking you're a detective in the game and trying to scout out the suspects. Or like, oh, maybe she's gonna answer something about this item, and then.
Speaking of VR though, and stuff like that, regarding these kind of games, what do you think about other games with VR, like World of Yoho or any of those other ones? Like,
well, I do have
are
one
they,
here.
are they
I
fun?
have another one.
You do have another one.
It's not a Kickstarter game, but it is a game that I am reviewing. It's called
Shopping
Shopping Time, and this one is another game that requires the app, but it's a drafting game where you're go to a shop that has these different items like food
You
items.
have to have the app in order to play the game, right?
Yes, you have to, and then these items are priced, whatever the price in that era is given. So you might find cheese from 1988, or you might find a pacifier from 1932. And the game has 4 different modes, and you're trying to guess like, how much can I get to up this point spending before I bust? If you bust, then you get no points.
Okay.
Yeah. And there's like other different modes, like can you get between these values, or you can go ahead and like, how much items I can gather before I bust.
Right.
So I do like it because it's like kind of like Price is Right, where you have to kind of think about the items and how much you get. You don't know exactly the items. The values of the items aren't on the app, but you never know them.
Do you think enough people have phones that have the capability for apps to this point where games can just start adding these aspects?
The apps now are like on Android and iOS, which is the major two in there. So and it's free, which is very nice.
Yeah.
The game's very inexpensive as it is. It's no extra fee. It doesn't seem like an extra fee to get the app. And the app by Mercury Games are done very well.
Okay. I think it really depends on obviously the amount of effort put into the app too, and how much you need it. I mean, World of Yoho is one of those games that's pretty. People talk about a lot.
That's a game
you have to
that's-
use your entire phone.
Yeah.
Right?
So the more games are becoming more integrated, and I do like to see games more where the integration is kind of like more on both sides, not on one side. Or sometimes like all calculated on the app.
Well, it gets to the point where you're no longer playing a board game and you're playing an app game, right, with your friends.
So this one I believe is half and half.
Yep.
And then Chronicles of Crime is a bit more towards like everything is done on the app.
But you're working with the
But
people.
you do need the game there. So it does feel that way for me at least.
Cool. I think we can talk about. Is there any other ones you want to talk about really quick?
That's a lot of games right
I just
now.
want to talk about a couple of the games that we had coming up, and basically what we do is designers and publishers would come to us and ask us to review certain games.
So why don't we open our panel up to the audience and see if they have any questions?
There is people with questions, yeah, right?
Yes.
If you are a person who wanted to get your game on Kickstarter, what tips would you get them for like getting a following, how to present that to make sure you actually hit your goal so you get funded?
I'll go ahead and try to answer this one. First of all, you probably want to know how Kickstarter works first. And that's just basically going through a simple transaction on Kickstarter, just pledging for the game, seeing how it goes through, and you will learn a lot from that because some designers will share their production, how they're making the game, how they're sending it to the manufacturer, it coming back from the boat, and then distributing it.
So you're talking about mainly marketing to get an audience for your game?
Yes.
Okay, so yeah, there's a plethora of ways you can go about getting that done. Obviously, it's about building a community for not just your game, right, which is important, but also your entire branding, right? And you can go about that through social media, and any of the analytics that you can obtain is very useful. Twitter, Facebook, and all that kind of stuff. Creating your own Facebook group for your game is awesome. A Facebook page for not only your game, but also your board game company.
Or even just a website too.
Sure, a website as well.
You have to make it look as professional as possible.
You want to find ways to increase your reach of people, because eyes on your game is the most important part, and building a community is also very important. And Instagram is also useful. It's something that you can kind of attach people to, and people use it all the time in some different board games and like that. And yeah, there's a lot of community involved in Twitter and Facebook and all that kind of stuff. There's a ton of great Kickstarter groups you can join to not only try and, because there's a difference between going to Facebook, right, and just throwing your game at people and being like, buy my game. No one likes that. You're gonna get nowhere if you keep trying to tell people to buy your game. If you're shilling your game out, it's not a good way to do it. You need to integrate yourself into the community first before you can pull a community, right? You need to be able to go, oh, I'm interested in this game. What are you guys interested in? Or, oh, can I join this Kickstarter board game group? Which there's a ton of great groups out there. But you can't just be like, oh, I'd like to jump on in here and show you my game. Because people don't like that, and they'll kick you off. And there's a lot of groups that will just basically ban you for trying to shill your content on there. But yeah, building communities can be very difficult too, though.
Yeah. Also, going to places like these, like the Arizona Game Fair or any convention, is a very good way because that's the gamers you're selling to, especially, right?
Yeah, showing your prototypes off. There's a building here specifically that has people playing prototypes nonstop.
So that also gets a way to also get feedback directly, and also bring your prototype to test the game out with these sort of players.
Yeah, I mean, one other way is, I mean, you could send it to a reviewer that has a big audience. That's a good ideas. Adding tutorials and all that kind of stuff. Those are very beneficial.
Do as much marketing as possible without you going too broke, right?
Yeah, I mean, if you want to make a game and you don't want to pay for marketing, you're not going to make a game. That's the sad fact of the matter. It's really hard unless you've already built up a community in something else. Like maybe you are from Cyanide Happiness. You don't really need to build a board game community. You already have a community, so you can use them to show other people, and you get the board gamers, and you get your own audience.
Yeah, just look at the Kickstarter and see who's doing well, who's not doing well. Look who's doing marketing, and look who's like looking at their game.
And that also joins in with our last panel I did regarding Kickstarter reviewers, just reviewers in general. You have to pick the reviewer that's going to be best for you and what your game involves. If you're obviously a first-time reviewer, a publisher or a designer, you're going to want to find somebody that's going to be, catering to you as best as they can. With also, you need to be reciprocal as far as that respect. But there's a bunch of great reviewers out there, and I don't think there's even just one you need to have. I think 3 or 4 reviews is a good amount.
Usually the thing is like 3 or 4.
Yeah, 3 to 4.
And then if you're doing a huge game, then you can get more.
That would be, I guess that would probably help, is building communities. It's very difficult though, but going about it, it's fairly simple if you're just honest with people and not trying to just sell them something. So, any other questions, I suppose?
Yes, person in the back.
Yes. What is the worst thing you bought on Kickstarter?
You go first, Michael.
The worst game I've got?
Yes.
I mean, there's some doozies out there. With more games comes worse games. The worst game I got in Kickstarter, I'm not going to mention names, I don't think, but it was a game that involved rolling and moving, and it didn't function the way I thought it was going to function, and in that case, really, really bothered me. It was also very, very gimmicky, and I was not satisfied. But I can say though, there's a lot of games out there that they kind of pull the wool over your eyes the first time. That's why I go back to building a community, because once you do that to somebody, once you show them a mechanic or whatever, and they're expecting it, and then you don't deliver, they will never back your games again, and I won't.
Okay, I don't know if I want to name names.
Go ahead. You can do it. I was too chicken to
But this is the early part of Kickstarter. As you back more Kickstarters, you get experience.
You're also able to know when they're going to try and bamboozle you, and they do try.
Yeah, and as you get more Kickstarters, you get more picky stuff you just want, and because you don't want to be, gypped of the money you put into this.
Yeah, and they can charge you whatever they want.
Yeah,
so you gotta know what price points.
Sadly, there are Kickstarters that have the designer, whoever put up the Kickstarter took the money and left, and that's very sad.
Oh, there is quite a plethora. I've never actually worked with anybody who had done that before. I actually gotten a review copy of the game though, in which they had kickstarted and it did well, and the game was pretty cool. It was a deck builder of sorts that involved a post-apocalyptic theme that apparently a lot of people were not very happy with them not sending out the game in time to their audience, and then because of that, they put out another game before sending the rest of it out. Mm-hmm. And I mean, I think when you talk about this one too, it's recent. We talked about Newspeak, right? Newspeak, they were a really smart idea of them actually. Is they didn't. I guess some people didn't get some of their games. Subterra is one of the games they made. I can't remember the name of it. What's inside the box is the company. But they were like, we're going to stop this campaign. We realize the concerns. We're going to address them. We're going to make sure you get all your games. And I mean, Subterra is a great game too. I got to review that one as well. But they went ahead and they said, we're going to do all this first to make sure our community is happy. Because if they would have just pushed the other game through, it probably would have funded. But then no one else would have, that would be it. Especially if they waited to produce their first 2 games. So building that community is important. I got to stress that because that's so important. But it's a very smart idea of them. Some people did not do that though. Okay. And that cost them.
Yeah, I'm not going to avoid the question, but yeah. So I'm going to give 2 games.
Oh wow.
All right, I have 2 games. And I will tell you why, so it's not that bad. First, one of them is called Story Wars, and this is a story building game where you play cards down and try to make the best stories as possible. And one person is the judge, and he's going to judge after people play their cards.
Judging games are so... Stop making judging games,
Yeah.
guys, please.
And yeah, that's it. It's a judging game. There you go.
Yeah.
And whoever the judges believes who won the story or the character you have will be the winner. And you keep going like this and that. Unfortunately, the deck was very small. It had a lot of cards. It had a lot of like different IPs, like from Bravest Warrior to I think Shovel Knight.
Oh, really?
Yeah, they have really nice IPs in there. But and my unfortunate thing for going for that game was for the hype of it. You know.
Well, that's the problem too, though, is like they spend a whole bunch of money on an IP and then they don't give you a game because they spent $1 million on producing a certain IP.
Well,
and you're like,
this
come
is
on,
like
I'd rather
before-
I'd rather you put a fake, make your own fantasy title
The
up
thing
and
is,
then
this is
give me 10
before-
minutes for it instead.
This is before when Shovel Knight was very popular. It's a very popular game now.
Yeah.
And when Bravest Warriors was very popular. It was starting off that. I think they're like even in their first season
Right.
and thing. So it's like,
But
but
I
now
think
they're
it's
very
still worth a
popular.
mention, though, too. If you have the option of making an IP and losing half your budget, or making your own fantasy story or medieval or whatever you want, and creating better content, higher quality content, do that instead. Like, there's gonna be tons of people that are gonna realize that your game's good just based on how much effort you put into it. You don't need to sell yourself an IP. Not that there's anything wrong with IPs, like I said, Rambo
Yeah.
here is a
I'll
good
really
game,
good.
but-
Okay, and the other one I want to mention is a game called Machine of Death, and I love the
Which one?
theme, Machine of Death.
Machine of Death.
Yeah.
Never heard of that one.
And it's based on the book.
You just chuck people into it?
No, it's based on a book called The Machine of Death, and it's a machine that will take a blood sample from you, and it will, out of this computer calculation, will tell you what you're gonna die of. But it's so nebulous of what you're gonna die of. So you'll die by old age. But is it old age as in you die of old age, or you die of a personal old age because he ran you over with a car?
I see.
Yeah. So it's a really good book. I really like it. It's very satirical. It's like short stories. But the game itself, when I got it, was of course the hype of it,
Of course.
and it sounded very good. It's another
Well, that's
story.
a big thing right now is hype too, right? There's games that just do really well because of hype, right?
It's another storytelling game where you are making a story up. It's like another short story in the book of Machine of Death. You're assassins in the game because a person has pricked their finger and know he's going to die of. Now you're assassins trying to get him to die as fast as he can and most as creatively as he can what he's going to die of or whatever card he gets. Yeah. Yeah, but the core mechanic of the game, and this is why. The core mechanic of the game is another judging game, but it's a group judging game. Like, we're going to judge ourselves of how well we did the killing of the game.
That's interesting too, because there's nothing wrong with judging games on their own, but I feel like it's just getting, there's just too much now. Cards Against Humanity, Apples to Apples, these are very popular games. They've done very well for themselves, and there's a couple others, Happiness and Cyanide, but because of that, a lot of people have jumped on to that. And you're gonna find some ones that are more interesting than others, right?
But this one's actually the more interesting game. And I still have the game. I still like the game, but it's just, another storytelling game. But
Yeah, a lot of people play these games and enjoy them too,
Yeah.
So-
Yeah, and I think the biggest regret wasn't actually the game wasn't. Well, the game's not that bad at all. It's just that I spent a lot of money on this, and it was a little
Usually when you back
it was-
campaigns now, you know what you're gonna get,
Yeah,
right?
it's a little
You're experienced.
it was a little too overproduced of what I'm getting, and it's like I got a lot of stuff, but now not a lot of my players in my gaming group didn't want to play it, so I kind of fell
thorough
for it.
answers here.
Yeah. Well, I hope that answered your question.
Nice and thorough. We like to be.
Okay, does anyone else have any questions?
Yeah.
Yes, lady in the polka dot shirt.
Speaking of being disappointed with Kickstarter games, how do you weed out games? How do you say, like, this game is a gimmick or not good? What are the top signs that you should not get this game?
I think we both know the answer to that one too. Is I guess it's reputation.
It's in the rule book. I mean,
Yeah.
we can read the rules before the game gets sent, and some games don't have certain rules that just should be in the game. And other times we will get. For me specifically, I won't talk for him, but I'll get a game and it won't be finished, or it'll have such an
I
important.
hate games when they're not finished.
And I just send them back. I don't want to be rude, and I also don't want to put a hit piece out. I've done a couple of hit pieces before because the games were they were done well and people liked them. I just hated them, so I wanted to make a kind of satirical piece on them. I guess I can mention the potion game, whatever that one's called, from Upper Deck. I hate that game. Sorry, I like some of their games, but that one, I despise it. Journey for the Potion, I don't know what it's
Also,
called.
it's reputation on the company. If they're first starting off, you want to look very carefully at what they're doing. Maybe it's a designer already designed a lot of games already, but they're starting their own company. Or if they are a company that have been making like 13 different games and they have all been successful, that is something to look for. And see if of those games that have been backed are good.
Generally, it's pretty easy though. If you read the rule book, and what's cool about a lot of Kickstarters too is you're going to see the rule books prior to getting the game. You're going to know how the game plays. You're going to see walkthroughs. Most people will hire us to show you guys these kind of things, which is pretty cool, But even still, even after reading the rules, you can miss stuff, right? You don't see the board fully, and you don't understand a certain position, or there's some game-breaking mechanic. And there's games that have game-breaking mechanics in them. And we don't get it, we have to bring it in, play it out a couple times, and then sometimes we even miss it our first 2 times. And generally speaking, whenever anybody plays a game, your first game, your second game, you don't fully understand the game. It has to be pretty micro to be able to grasp fully your first 2 times,
Also, Kickstarter is no longer a place to help you develop a game.
Yeah,
you already,
this
you
is a
already
pre-order
have
system now.
developed your game already.
Yeah.
And if you're
You have
not
little
ready,
things that are not, you have little things that you're building, but for the most part, Kickstarter is a pre-order system.
yeah, it is pre-ordered now. And it's like saying,
Exactly.
this is the game that we would like to publish. We just need help with your money just to manufacture it.
Can we have your money to manufacture said game that is already done with all its artwork and all of its things? Oh, also there's some stretch goals we can add if we get more money. And there's nothing wrong with that as well. It's just a change, I think, in how games are developed. But I also didn't mind the original concept of, this is the game I have, here's my pen and paper script, and let's see if we can make this happen as a community. It's not really like that anymore.
Yeah, of course now, because Kickstarter's been out, 5-6 years already. Yeah. People have learned a lot, and it's just a better way.
They know how to make more money, and that's by having a product already ready.
It's not just more money; it's actually people coming back.
Oh yeah.
Because if they're happy at the end product, and then they will come back. Therefore, Kickstarter makes more money, and then you'll also make more money.
Yeah, that's the way the world works. Whether no matter how devoted and that kind of stuff you are to this, it is about making sure you can feed your family and all that, and there's nothing wrong with that,
All right. Do we have any more questions?
Yep.
Okay. Yes, you in the gray jacket.
Of the games you guys showed here today, which one are you most looking forward to seeing on Kickstarter, and when is it going up?
Oh, the ones we have here?
Yeah.
All the ones, maybe the ones including in the room. I don't know.
Yeah.
Yeah. You want to go first? You go first.
That's a good question. So
These
there's a couple of
these are all
them.
wonderful.
These are all pretty good games, yeah. I really like chess. I really like Eternal Kings, how it functions, and that's currently on Kickstarter. So one that's coming is going to be, I bought Escape from Dulce and Endogenesis. And I haven't played this one enough to know that I really enjoy it. But Escape from Dulce is really cool. I really, really enjoy this game. I love the aspect of moving up the towers and all that kind of stuff. And the fact that they didn't skimp on anything. You're fighting a green alien, you're fighting A, B, C, and D green alien, and you can actually have them, they're always different. They always move differently, even though they're all the same type, right? You're fighting a robot, or you're fighting all these different cyborg ninjas, right? There's different ones you're fighting, but they're all going to be, I'm going to attack the guy with the highest strength or the highest agility. And they're moving around the board differently, and you have to strategize based on that. And then obviously this 3D tower is one of those things that is just, you're going to catch your eye every single time you're walking by. It's going to kind of get you to be interested in the game. I think that's a really good aspect of it. And I don't see a lot of that happening, so I'd probably say Escape from Dulce, although the primaries are really close.
Yeah, well, this is my pick.
Okay.
And it's because I really like the theme, and it's also a programmatic
Works so well.
area control. Programmatic area control, and it also wraps up at the end of people trying to go to these last states and trying to get those votes.
Yeah.
Yeah.
I mean, thematically, it just works wonderful. That's what's really cool about that game. Yeah.
So it's nicely rolled out. I like the art's nice, the graphics design is nice, and it plays up to 5 players.
I think that type of artwork is going to be a strong staple in the board gaming industry because of how like the vibrant colors and whatnot. As long as it's themed right, I think it'll do well.
And also, like I think most of them, maybe even Chronicles of Crime, is that it's a very easy game to get into as well. Once you play the first round, you're good.
These kind of games are definitely going to be for a certain audience, and also you have to have a cell phone that functions with it or a tablet or something like that. If you don't have that, you can't even play the game. So that's only one of those things that you just can't avoid.
But the access of people having apps now,
it's
people
very
common.
so often have these cell phones and whatnot.
And they don't take a lot of space in your phone. I mean, these things are just you
don't need that much data. Yeah.
And then you can just play it.
You delete it and just.
And guess what? The app is free. The app is free. As long as you make the app free, then we're
free
fine.
content. Yeah, basically.
Yeah. Yeah. Also, they have expansions to make that free too.
Yeah. But yeah, there's a lot of cool games coming on Kickstarter. It's just about finding what
Looks like
you
we
really
have
enjoy.
time for one more question. We'll take one from the lady with the red jacket.
Not the games you have here, maybe ones you've even backed yourself. What is the game you are most anticipating for on Kickstarter right now?
Oh, that's got to be
man.
Rising Sun. It hasn't come yet, so it still counts. Rising Sun is by Konami or not. We picked up all the things for it because my buddy loves Japanese culture, and the miniatures are beautiful, and it is a cool, I don't know what you want to call it, but like you have your own group of tribe of people or whatever, like Shogun and all them, and you're just going back and forth fighting each other. And I backed the others, which I loved. I love a lot of their games. Some of them not so much. I didn't really back the Game of Thrones, which I'm a big fan of. I just wasn't interested in that because it looked more like Warhammer to me than I wanted. But Rising Sun was beautiful in almost every way, so that was probably the one I'm looking forward to the most.
And these are games that are on Kickstarter right now, or
Anticipating, basically.
anticipating.
Yeah.
Okay, so let's see. One of my favorite, I think my favorite game companies right now, Level 99, is coming out with a train game called Imperials and
Oh, that's not fair. That thing's so far away. Like that's like months.
No, it's going to be end of March.
It's March.
Man.
Okay, maybe.
Yes, and this is a game by Trey Chambers, who also did Argent the Consortium, and that's
the Kickstarter's coming out, right? So that's what you're looking forward to when it's okay. Mine's already done. You can't get it now.
But this one is I just love Trey Chambers' style of game.
All of Level 99 does great stuff. I haven't found a game I don't like of them.
Yeah, so it is another game in the world of Indians, or Indines, if you want to call it that way. And it's about trains, and these trains have different abilities, and you're just going. It is like a train game, but with magic.
Yeah.
There you go. I unfortunately, even though I have close ties with Level 99, is that I don't really exactly know what's in this game, but I know it's going to be spectacular.
It's okay. Maybe I'll call it for you and let you know.
Yeah.
Just teasing. But yeah, I mean, we appreciate you guys taking the time and just stopping by, especially you guys watching on our channels and whatnot.
Yes, thank you for coming. It means so much to us.
And this is the Arizona Game Fair.
Yes.
And this in
our Kickstarter showcase.
Yeah, talking about just Kickstarter games in general. And if you're interested in making some games, you can always find us on our channels. I'm at unfilteredgamer.com, as well as Unfiltered Gamer, the YouTube channel, and Instagram. You can just Google us.
And Twitter.
Yeah, right.
Yeah. And you can find me, the Cardboard Stacker, at www.thecardboardstacker.com, and also at our YouTube, The Cardboard Stacker, Twitter at cbstacker.com, and also on Facebook.
And we're small enough to where you can just message us on Facebook and we'll actually. What's up? Yeah, you got a game? We'll talk to you about it. I like working with designers, and I think that's really important, especially as a reviewer, to be able to kind of have that back and forth conversation with them and tell them how I can help them.
I guess we just have to close this now. So
I appreciate it, and I look forward to seeing you guys next time.
And remember to keep on stacking games.